In a moment of crisis, individuals are tested to the limits. And sometimes we find qualities in ourselves and others that we never knew existed. We begin in the mountains above Fort Angeles, Washington on April 26, 1994, as Steve Reifenstahl and his best friend Ivan Beatty set out to have some fun after high school.
We're a lot like brothers. We fight like brothers do, and we do a lot of stuff together. We went down over to the cliff, got on our hands and knees and looked over the edge. It was a little bit windy, and you could hear the waves. You can see the water down there, and it was a long ways down. And we started throwing rocks off, and we got bored of that, and we were about to go, and Steve said there's a big log over in the brush.
This thing's big. I hope nobody's down. Okay, we're gonna have to really heave it so it bounces, all right?
He squatted down below me and held on to it, and I pushed it over.
Down below!
It caught his coat sleeve. Called his name a couple times and there was no response. I couldn't believe it was happening.
When Steve Reifenstahl fell off a 200-foot cliff into the dense forest below, his best friend, 18-year-old Ivan Beatty, could do nothing but go to get help.
Can you hear me?
I felt kind of helpless because I was at the top and I couldn't get down to him. And there's no way I could help him.
Column County Volunteer Fire Rescue Units responded, including EMT Donna Johnson.
The drop to the water is about 20 stories. We are taught in our schooling that at 3 stories, it's rare that they survive.
Sheriff's Detective Matt Dalton took charge at the scene.
I had to watch for several moments before I could really see any movement, and I had to study it to be sure that it wasn't something that I was just wishing for. But after watching, I was sure that he was still alive at that time.
It'll take a little bit of time, but we want you to stay awake.
The first thought that everybody there's thinking of and trying to figure out is, how are we going to get to him?
Right here, Dano.
There was a trail that went down to the general area. So I grabbed a couple of the volunteer firemen and asked them to go down the trail to see if they could render some medical assistance, because he was going to obviously need it relatively quickly after such a fall.
The first search and rescue worker to arrive, who was trained to rappel, was 73-year-old Art Judd.
I've been in search and rescue for 6 years. Before that, I was a volunteer fireman for 37 years. Before that, I was a paratrooper.
Art's an amazing man. And I didn't really think twice about it. I knew Art would handle it. Here's a man that's in incredible shape for his age. You know, he found the fountain of youth somewhere in the past and neglected to tell anybody else about it.
A Coast Guard helicopter arrived with rescue swimmer Chris Kemper on board.
We had to get the helicopter extremely close to the cliff in order to lower me down, and that was very dangerous getting in there. And Art rappelling down the cliff was very dangerous just because of being basically an overhang and a sheer face. So it was pretty dangerous for everybody involved.
It was really close to that cliff, and a gust of wind or a big rock or something come down, and that's all she wrote. When I looked down, I saw the rotor of a helicopter going around right below me. So they stopped me. And I had to stand there about 5 minutes.
as I hit the ground, I noticed that Dan and Donna were there, and I pointed in the general direction that I thought he was.
20 more feet, Dano. 20 feet. The first thing we saw was his legs, and his feet were completely broken and hanging to the sides. My main concern was that we were going to lose him to shock before we even got a chance to take him to the hospital.
They had a radio with them. We were able to ask them, are you going to be able to get him out on the trail? And it was a definite no. And it would be very dangerous to try to evacuate the injured man out straight up the cliff.
Give us a hand, or can you give us a hand with this guy? Or?
When I got there, I talked to Chris, the Coast Guardsman. I said, do you think we can fly him out? And he said, no, there's too much brush, too many trees, and they have to get too close to the cliff. And I said, we're going to have to lift him out and go up the cliff.
I was in shock big time. I didn't think he was going to make it out. And it was just a bad feeling.
We had to put him on a miller board inside a basket so we could take him out. And it seemed to take forever. I felt that the time that we spent down there was too long. I really did feel like we were going to lose him.
Okay, we're going to go and meet the helicopter at the top.
There must have been about 15 to 20 volunteers on the other end of the rope. I imagine that they were lifting probably at least 400 pounds up the face of the cliff.
Easy.
Art didn't have anything to put his feet on, to push off with anything. He was just completely hanging in free air. And so they'd oftentimes have to wait for the spinning to stop before they would pull again.
You guys got to get a hold now.
Okay, easy. All easy. Don't get Art over yet.
When he came over the top, I was really concerned because I didn't see him moving or talking. The paramedic informed me that, yes, he was unconscious at that point.
Okay, lift. Okay, here we go. Hold on, Steve. You okay?
The first time I saw Steve, he was covered up and he had a neck brace thing on. And I remember when they tilted him to pick him up, I told him that I was there and everything's going to be just fine.
19-year-old Steve Reifenstahl was flown to Olympic Memorial Hospital. There he was examined by emergency physician Arthur Tordini.
Again?
Steven's spine was fractured in several places in the lower back region. The feet and ankles were bent around 180 degrees and facing upright. He had spent nearly 3 hours in the field since the fall, and we were afraid that his legs would not be salvageable and that he would lose them.
Von Reifenstahl and Barbara Ware joined their son at the hospital.
When I first saw him, he looked like a mummy. He was all wrapped up. But I just looked like he was so little and so helpless, and I couldn't do nothing to help him.
Steve was transferred to Harborview Medical Center, where a team of specialists performed surgery to repair his broken vertebrae and try to save his severely damaged legs. Over the next 3 weeks, Steve drifted in and out of consciousness.
I stayed with him day in, day out, sitting in a chair, holding his hand, and talked to him, because the doctor said he can hear you.
I just kept saying, Stephen, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand, Stephen, and he wouldn't. So I just kept doing that for hours, and he wouldn't wake up for me.
Wake up, honey.
I just kept telling him how much I love him and that we want him to get well and that everybody was there and everything's okay.
Ivan came to see Steve every weekend.
I think it was the third week I got to go in and see him, and I told him that I was there. And if he heard me, I told him to squeeze my fingers twice, and he did.
We're here for you, Steve.
When he squeezed my fingers, I thought that he'd be okay then. He recognized who I was.
Steve was moved to a rehabilitation center to begin the painful process of learning to walk again under the guidance of physical therapist Brett Nelson.
First steps, all right? Yep.
Steve was always motivated during his stay here, and in fact, sometimes we had to slow him down because he was real anxious to get out of bed and get moving and get back home.
1, 2, 3, up.
I mean, I owe everything to the doctors, the rescue crew, the Coast Guard for saving my son's life. Look at my son now. He's walking for legs that should have been amputated. And his feet are just, oh. It's unbelievable.
6 months have passed. Doctors expect Steve will soon be walking without crutches.
They say that if Ivan wouldn't have hung on to me, that I probably wouldn't have landed on my feet. And if I wouldn't have landed on my feet, I probably would have died. So I think I was really lucky. And I also think that I must have purpose for life to be saved.
A lot of times our rigs don't look pretty. A lot of our equipment are given to us by someone else. But the people have the heart. They'll go anywhere and do anything to save a life.
All you guys are out there? Or?
We became close down there, although he doesn't know it. To me, he's a part of me now. Yeah, you kept telling me to bring the car around. Let me sleep it off.
It's changed my life for the fact that I appreciate life now. There was so many people out there to help me. I didn't think my life was that important. It's pretty amazing to see everybody out there.
Recently, Steve got a chance to meet Art.
Hi, Steve. Howdy. A long time.
Yeah. Pretty amazing to hear about this man going over the edge. He risked his own life for me, and when I found out his age, I couldn't believe it.
Kind of hand me all the glory, but that isn't true, because one thing I'd like to say is that it just wasn't me. It was the fire department, the search and rescue, the sheriff's department, and the Coast Guard. We were all working in as a team. It's a real satisfying feel. Told the wife I thought maybe I should use this for my grand finale, and after almost 46 years of emergency services, I thought maybe this would be a good time to cut it off. And I was telling him, knock it off. You're going to get.
I think Art's a great guy. It takes a special person to be something like that. That's a long ways down to go get someone you don't even know. He risked his own life to save my son. And I want to thank him.